Deadly silence falls over the Apache village when the chief's only son suddenly stops breathing. Panic spreads, and no one dares to intervene, except one unexpected person, a white prisoner with nothing to gain and everything to lose. What happens next will change everything. Thank you so much for watching and for all your comments. Let me know at the end if you liked the story and where you're watching from and why you're following this. The Arizona Territory stretched endlessly under the merciless sun of 1873, its red dust painting everything in shades of copper and amber. The Apache village nestled in a canyon where ancient cottonwoods provided scarce shade, their leaves whispering secrets carried by the desert wind. This was the land of Chief Naiche, a man whose wisdom was matched only by his fierce determination to protect his people from the encroaching tide of white settlers and soldiers. Eleanor Whitfield had never imagined her life would lead to this moment. 3 months ago, she had been traveling with a wagon train from Missouri to California, dreaming of a new beginning after her father's death had left her with nothing but memories and determination. The Apache raid had come without warning, swift and devastating. Most of the settlers had been killed, but Eleanor and 2 others had been taken captive. The 2 men had tried to escape within the first week and had paid with their lives. Eleanor had learned quickly that survival meant observation, patience, and respect. She lived now in a small dwelling at the edge of the village, her movements watched but not restricted. The Apache women had taught her their ways, not out of kindness but out of necessity. She gathered water, prepared food, and tended to the sick when needed. Her knowledge of healing herbs, learned from her father who had been a physician, had proven valuable. It was this knowledge that had kept her alive when others might have considered her expendable. The morning had begun like any other, with Eleanor carrying water from the stream when she heard the commotion near the chief's dwelling. Warriors were gathering, their voices rising in urgent discussion. She recognized some of the words now, having picked up fragments of the Apache language during her captivity. Something was terribly wrong. "The chief's son," one of the younger warriors said in halting English, noticing her presence. His name was Daklugi, and he had sometimes spoken with her, curious about the white woman's world. "Katsina. He does not breathe right. The medicine woman tries, but nothing helps." Eleanor's heart began to race. Katsina was Chief Naiche's only son, a strong young man of 19 winters who had recently completed his warrior trials. She had seen him from a distance many times, his presence commanding respect among the people. He was tall and powerfully built, with features that spoke of both strength and intelligence. The young Apache women often watched him with admiration, and Eleanor had noticed, though she had kept such observations to herself. "What happened to him?" Eleanor asked, her voice steady despite the tension she felt. Daklugi shook his head. "He was hunting in the high canyon. A plant, maybe poison. His throat closes. Air will not come." The warrior's face was grave. "If the chief's son dies, there will be great anger. Blood will be demanded." The implication was clear. If Katsina died, the fragile tolerance that had allowed Eleanor to survive would shatter. The Apache would seek vengeance, and she would be the most convenient target. But beyond her own survival, Eleanor felt something else stirring within her, a physician's instinct that her father had instilled in her. Someone was dying, and she might have the knowledge to help. "Take me to him," Eleanor said firmly. "I know medicine from my father. I might be able to help." Daklugi stared at her, uncertainty crossing his features. "The chief will not allow a white captive near his son. You do not understand what you ask." "I understand perfectly," Eleanor replied, her green eyes meeting his dark ones without flinching. "But if I can help and I do nothing, his death will haunt me forever. And if he dies anyway, what difference does it make what happens to me?" The warrior considered her words for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "Come, but I cannot promise the chief will listen. I cannot promise you will live past this day." They walked through the village, drawing stares from the people. Eleanor's blonde hair, dulled by dust and sun, still marked her as an outsider. Her dress, once a proper traveling garment, was now worn and patched with deerskin. She had learned to move quietly, to keep her eyes respectful but alert. Now, as she approached the chief's dwelling, she felt every gaze upon her like a physical weight. Chief Naiche stood outside, his face carved from stone, his eyes reflecting a grief so profound that Eleanor felt it in her chest. He was a man in his prime, perhaps 40 years old, his presence radiating authority and barely contained fury. When he saw Eleanor approaching with Daklugi, his hand moved to the knife at his belt. "Why do you bring the white woman here?" The chief's English was perfect, learned from missionaries years ago, though he rarely used it. "This is not her concern." Daklugi spoke rapidly in Apache, explaining Eleanor's offer. The chief's expression darkened further, but before he could refuse, a woman emerged from the dwelling. She was the medicine woman, her face lined with age and wisdom, her eyes reflecting defeat. "The spirits do not answer," she said in Apache, her voice carrying the weight of failure. "His breath grows weaker. Soon he will walk the spirit path." Eleanor took a step forward, her voice clear despite her fear. "Chief Nietzsche, I have seen this before. When my father treated a man who ate poisonous berries, his throat swelled shut just like this. My father saved him by making a small cut in the throat, allowing air to pass. It is dangerous, but your son will die without it. Let me try to save him." The chief stared at her, and Eleanor saw the war raging behind his eyes. She was a white woman, one of the people who had brought nothing but death and betrayal to his tribe. To trust her with his son's life went against everything he believed. Yet she could also see the desperate love of a father facing the loss of his child. "If you fail, if my son dies by your hand, you will die slowly," Chief Nietzsche said, each word deliberate and cold. "The women will take days to finish you. Do you understand this?" "I understand," Eleanor replied, though her hands trembled slightly. "But I also know that doing nothing guarantees his death. At least let me try." The chief stepped aside, his jaw clenched so tightly that the muscles stood out like cords. "Then try, white woman, and may your God protect you if you fail, for mine will not." Eleanor entered the dwelling, her eyes adjusting to the dimmer light. Katsina lay on furs, his powerful body racked with spasms as he fought for air. His lips had turned blue, his eyes rolling back as consciousness began to fade. The medicine woman had placed herbs on his chest and sung prayers, but Eleanor could see that traditional methods would not work against this kind of poisoning. She knelt beside him, her mind racing through everything her father had taught her. She needed a sharp blade, clean if possible, and steady hands. "I need a knife, heated in fire until it glows, then cooled in clean water," she said to Daklugi, who had followed her inside. "And I need cloth, the cleanest you can find, quickly." As Daklugi rushed to gather the materials, Eleanor placed her hand on Katsina's chest, feeling his heart racing frantically beneath her palm. His eyes opened briefly, focusing on her face with confusion, and something that might have been recognition before they closed again. She had never been this close to him before, and even in this moment of crisis, she noticed the strong lines of his face, the dignity that remained even in suffering. "Stay with me," she whispered, though she doubted he could hear her. "I will not let you die if I can prevent it." The knife arrived, still warm from the fire. Eleanor tested its edge and took a deep breath. Her father had described this procedure, had even let her observe once, but she had never performed it herself. One wrong cut could sever an artery and kill Katsina instantly, but not cutting would guarantee his death within minutes. She felt for the correct spot on his throat, her fingers trembling slightly as she positioned the blade. Chief Nietzsche stood at the entrance, watching with eyes that promised death if she failed. The medicine woman muttered prayers. Daklugi held his breath. Eleanor made the cut. Blood welled from the incision, and for a terrible moment Eleanor thought she had cut too deep. Her heart hammered against her ribs as she worked with trembling fingers to widen the opening just enough. Then she heard it, the wet, desperate sound of air rushing into Katsina's lungs through the new passage she had created. His chest expanded, color slowly returning to his lips as oxygen flooded his starved body. Chief Nietzsche stepped closer, his shadow falling across his son's face. Eleanor could feel the chief's presence like a storm about to break, but she kept her focus on Katsina. She packed the wound with clean cloth, keeping the passage open while preventing excessive bleeding. The young warrior's breathing steadied, though it rattled strangely through the artificial opening in his throat. "He breathes," the medicine woman said, her voice filled with wonder and perhaps a hint of resentment. The white woman has brought him back from the spirit path. Katsina's eyes opened, clearer now, and found Eleanor's face. She saw confusion there, and pain, but also something else. A question that had no words. His hand moved weakly, and without thinking, Eleanor caught it in hers, squeezing gently. "You are safe now," she told him softly. "The poison caused your throat to swell, but this will allow you to breathe until the swelling goes down. In a few days, you will heal completely." Chief Nietzsche spoke in Apache, his voice tight with emotion that he struggled to contain. Daklugi translated for Eleanor. "The chief says you have proven yourself today. He says the debt between you and his people has shifted. You are no longer a prisoner, but you are not yet free. You will care for Katsina until he recovers fully. If he lives and grows strong again, then we will speak of what comes next." Eleanor nodded, understanding that her life still hung in the balance, tied now to Katsina's recovery. She released his hand and stood, her legs shaking from the aftermath of fear and adrenaline. "I will need to change the dressing twice daily and watch for infection. He should drink water with honey if you have it, and eat soft foods that will not irritate his throat. The external wound should heal in 4 to 5 days, and the internal swelling should subside in 3. Over the following days, Eleanor became Katsina's constant companion. She tended to his wound with careful precision, cleaning it with boiled water and herbs that the medicine woman grudgingly provided. The older woman watched Eleanor's every move with sharp eyes, clearly uncertain whether to view her as a rival or an unexpected ally in the healing arts. Katsina could not speak, which frustrated him greatly. Eleanor could see the questions burning in his dark eyes as she changed his dressings. He was a proud warrior, reduced to helplessness, dependent on a white woman who had been his people's captive. The contradiction seemed to war within him constantly. On the second day, as Eleanor carefully cleaned the wound, Katsina caught her wrist. His grip was weak but determined. He pointed to himself, then to her, then made a gesture Eleanor did not understand. She looked to Daklugi, who sat nearby as both guard and translator. "He asks why you saved him," Daklugi said. "He asks why you would risk the chief's anger and your own life for an Apache warrior who would have killed you without hesitation if you had tried to escape." Eleanor met Katsina's gaze directly. "Because watching someone die when you have the knowledge to save them is not something I could live with," she said honestly. "My father taught me that healing knows no boundaries of race or circumstance. A life is a life, and it is precious. Even if you had killed me for trying to escape, I would not have wanted you to die like that." Daklugi translated, and something shifted in Katsina's expression. He released her wrist and touched his chest, over his heart, then gestured to her. Daklugi smiled slightly. "He says you have a warrior's courage and a healer's heart. He says such a combination is rare in any person, man or woman, Apache or white." Eleanor felt warmth rise to her cheeks. "Tell him he needs to rest and stop trying to talk. The more he strains, the longer he will take to heal." As the days passed, Eleanor noticed changes in how the village treated her. The women no longer turned away when she approached the stream. Children who had once thrown stones now watched her with curious eyes. Warriors nodded to her in passing, a sign of respect she had never received before. The invisible walls that had surrounded her began to crumble, though she remained cautious, knowing that trust once broken between peoples took more than one act to rebuild. By the 4th day, Katsina's external wound had healed enough that Eleanor removed the packing, allowing him to breathe normally again through his nose and mouth. The internal swelling had subsided as she had predicted. When he took his first full breath through his natural passages, his eyes closed in relief. "Thank you," he said, his voice rough and barely above a whisper, but unmistakably grateful. These were the first words he had spoken to her directly. Eleanor smiled, feeling an unexpected surge of emotion. "You are welcome. You are strong, and you fought hard to live. I only gave you the chance." That evening, Chief Nietzsche summoned Eleanor to his fire. She went with Daklugi at her side, uncertain what this meeting would bring. The chief sat with several of his senior warriors, their faces illuminated by the dancing flames. The medicine woman was there too, her expression unreadable. "Sit," Chief Nietzsche commanded, gesturing to a place across the fire from him. Eleanor sat, keeping her back straight and her hands still in her lap, as she had learned these gestures conveyed respect. "You have saved my son's life," the chief began, his voice carrying the formal tone of a leader making an important pronouncement. "This is a debt that cannot be measured in horses or goods. The medicine woman has told me that without your knowledge and your courage, Katsina would have walked the spirit path. She says your skill comes from long learning, and that you honored her traditions even as you used your own." Eleanor glanced at the medicine woman, surprised. The older woman gave a slight nod, the closest thing to approval Eleanor had seen from her. Chief Nietzsche continued, "You are no longer a prisoner of the Apache. You are free to go to return to your people if that is your wish. We will give you supplies, a horse, and safe passage to the nearest settlement. This is the honor debt we owe." Eleanor's heart raced. Freedom. The word she had dreamed of for 3 months was now being offered to her. She could leave this place, return to the world she knew, continue her journey to California or return east. She could reclaim the life that had been stolen from her. But as she sat there, watching the firelight play across the faces of people who had been her captors and were now offering her liberty, Eleanor realized something that shocked her. She was not certain she wanted to leave. Not yet. Not like this. "Chief Nietzsche," she said carefully, "I am grateful for your offer of freedom, but I would ask something different, if you would permit it." The chief's eyebrows rose slightly, the only sign of his surprise. "Speak." "Allow me to stay for a time longer," Eleanor said. "Not as a prisoner, but as a healer. I have seen sickness among your people that I know how to treat. There are children with fevers that my father's medicines could help. There are wounds that could benefit from what I know. And I could teach the medicine woman some of what my father taught me, if she would accept such knowledge." The medicine woman leaned forward, her eyes sharp with interest. "You would share your healing secrets with me? Why would you do this?" Eleanor turned to face her directly. "Because healing knowledge should be shared, not hoarded. Because I have learned from watching you that you have wisdom I do not possess. Perhaps we could learn from each other, and the people would benefit from both our knowledge combined." A murmur ran through the warriors. Chief Nietzsche studied Eleanor for a long moment, his face revealing nothing of his thoughts. Finally he spoke. "This is an unusual request. You would choose to remain among us when you could leave." "For a time, yes," Eleanor confirmed. "Until I feel that I have repaid the kindness shown to me, and until I am certain that Katsina has fully recovered with no complications." "My son is nearly healed," the chief pointed out. "You said yourself he would be fully recovered within days." Eleanor hesitated, then decided on honesty. "That is true. But I have also come to realize that in these months, I have learned things I never would have known if I had stayed among my own people. I have learned about strength, about survival, about seeing the world through different eyes. I am not ready to leave that learning behind just yet, and perhaps in some small way, I can help bridge the gap between our peoples, even if only in this one village." Katsina's voice, still rough but stronger, came from the shadows beyond the fire. "Father, I would ask that she stay." Everyone turned to see the chief's son approaching, his movements still careful but his bearing proud. He should have been resting, but Eleanor was not surprised he had come. She had learned that Katsina was not one to remain idle when important matters were being decided. "You should not be walking so soon," Eleanor said, concern overriding protocol. A slight smile touched Katsina's lips. "You told me I was strong, and that I fought hard to live. Was that not true?" "It was true, but then trust in your own healing," Katsina said. He turned to his father. "This woman saved my life when she could have let me die and perhaps gained favor with our enemies. She risked everything, knowing that failure meant a terrible death. She has courage that matches any warrior's and wisdom that could benefit our people. If she wishes to stay and share her knowledge, we should honor that choice." Chief Nietzsche looked between his son and Eleanor, and for the first time since she had known him, a hint of amusement touched his stern features. "My son speaks with unusual passion for someone who could barely whisper this morning. Very well, Eleanor Whitfield. You may stay as a free woman and a healer to our people. You will live in the dwelling you have occupied, but you will be under our protection, not our guard. You will be free to leave whenever you choose, but while you are here, you will be treated as one who has earned our respect." Eleanor felt a weight lift from her shoulders, even as a new kind of nervousness settled in her stomach. She had just committed herself to remaining among people who had every reason to hate those who looked like her, but she had also seen beyond that hate to the individuals beneath, people who loved their children, honored their elders, and valued courage and healing. Perhaps here, in this unlikely place, she could find a purpose she had not known she was seeking. The weeks that followed transformed Eleanor's existence in ways she had never anticipated. As autumn painted the canyon in shades of gold and crimson, she found herself woven into the fabric of Apache life not as an outsider, but as someone who belonged in her own unique way. The medicine woman, whose name Eleanor learned was Desba, became her teacher and student in equal measure. Together they created remedies that combined the best of both their traditions, saving lives that might otherwise have been lost to infection or fever. But it was Katsina who occupied Eleanor's thoughts more than she cared to admit. As his strength returned fully, he began to seek her out with increasing frequency. At first, he came with questions about healing, asking her to explain the principles her father had taught her. Then he began to appear at the stream when she gathered water, or at the edge of the village when she collected herbs, offering to carry her baskets or guide her to better locations for finding particular plants. Eleanor told herself it was simple gratitude, nothing more. Yet she could not deny the way her heart quickened when she saw him approaching, or how she found herself watching for his tall figure among the warriors returning from hunts. Katsina was everything she had never imagined she might admire in a man. He was strong and skilled with weapons, yes, but he was also thoughtful, curious about her world, and possessed of a quiet humor that surprised her. One evening, as the first chill of winter touched the air, Katsina found Eleanor sitting outside her dwelling, watching the stars emerge in the darkening sky. He carried 2 bowls of stew and offered her one without asking permission to join her. "You look troubled," he said, settling beside her with the easy grace of a man completely comfortable in his own body. His voice had fully recovered, rich and warm in the twilight. Eleanor accepted the bowl with a small smile. "I was thinking about my father. He used to say that the stars were the same everywhere, that they connected all people regardless of where they lived or what language they spoke. I think he would have liked knowing that I was looking at them from here, in this place he never imagined I would be." Katsina studied the sky for a moment. "The Apache have stories about the stars too. My mother used to tell me that each star was the spirit of a great warrior or wise woman, watching over the people they loved. She said that as long as the stars shone, we were never truly alone." "Your mother," Eleanor said softly. "Taklugi told me she died in a raid by soldiers 3 years ago. I am sorry for your loss." Katsina's jaw tightened briefly, then relaxed. "She was a strong woman, like you. She never bent to fear even when the soldiers came. She protected the children until her last breath." He paused, then added, "She would have liked you, I think. She believed that true strength was not just in fighting, but in healing, in building, in protecting what matters most." Eleanor felt warmth spread through her chest at his words. "I wish I could have known her." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, eating the stew and watching the stars multiply across the vast sky. Finally, Katsina spoke again, his voice lower, more tentative than she had ever heard it. "Eleanor, I must speak plainly with you about something that has been in my thoughts for many days now." She turned to face him, seeing the seriousness in his expression. "Of course. What troubles you?" "You saved my life," Katsina began, "and in doing so you created a bond between us that goes beyond gratitude. Among my people, when someone saves a life in such a way, it is believed that your spirits become connected. The saved person owes the saver a life debt, but more than that, there is recognition that this person saw value in your life when they could have chosen otherwise." Eleanor listened, her heart beginning to beat faster as she sensed where this conversation might be leading. Katsina continued, choosing his words with care. "Since that day, I have watched you. I have seen how you treat our people with respect and kindness. I have seen your courage, not just in that moment when you cut my throat to save me, but every day as you live among people who were once your enemies. I have seen your wisdom and your gentleness, your strength and your compassion, and I have come to feel things that I did not expect to feel for a white woman." Eleanor's breath caught in her throat. "Katsina," he held up a hand gently. "Please let me finish. I know that my people and your people are at war. I know that loving across this divide would be difficult, perhaps impossible. But I also know that when I see you, I do not see a white woman. I see Eleanor, who risked everything to save a stranger's life. I see a healer who cares more about helping people than about the color of their skin. I see a woman of courage and beauty, both inside and out, and I find that I cannot imagine my life without you in it. Eleanor felt tears prick her eyes. For weeks she had been pushing down her own growing feelings for Katsina, telling herself they were foolish, impossible, dangerous. But hearing him speak these words released something inside her that had been held too tightly for too long. I feel it too, she whispered. I have tried not to. Tried to tell myself it was gratitude or loneliness or anything else. But the truth is that when I am with you, I feel more myself than I ever have before. You see me, truly see me, in a way no one else ever has. And I have come to care for you deeply, more deeply than I thought possible in such a short time. Katsina reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away if she wished, and took her hand in his. His palm was warm and calloused from years of wielding weapons and working with his hands. Then we face a choice, he said. We can deny what we feel and live with that emptiness, or we can be brave enough to pursue it, knowing that the path will not be easy. Eleanor looked down at their joined hands, at the contrast of her pale skin against his darker tone, and saw not difference but connection. I spent 3 months as a prisoner, wondering if I would live to see another day, she said quietly. Those months taught me that life is too precious and too uncertain to waste on fear. If there is a chance for happiness, for love, for a life built on mutual respect and understanding, then I want to take that chance, even if it is difficult, even if others do not understand. Katsina's eyes shone with emotion he did not try to hide. My father will not oppose this, he said. He has already told me that he sees how I look at you, and he has said that a man who does not honor the woman who saved his life is no man at all. But there will be others, both among my people and yours, who will not accept us. Then we will face them together, Eleanor said firmly. I did not choose to come to this canyon, but I choose to stay. And I choose you, Katsina, if you will have me. In answer, Katsina raised her hand to his lips and kissed her knuckles gently, a gesture that somehow bridged both their cultures. I choose you too, Eleanor Whitfield. From this moment forward, whatever comes, we face it together. The next morning, Katsina spoke with his father formally, declaring his intention to take Eleanor as his wife. Chief Naiche listened carefully, then called a council of the elders and senior warriors. Eleanor waited anxiously outside the council dwelling, her stomach knotted with nervousness. Desba came to sit beside her, the medicine woman's weathered face showing a rare smile. Do not worry so much, Desba said. The chief has already made his decision. This council is merely to ensure that all voices are heard, and that there is no discord among the people. How can you be certain? Eleanor asked. Because I know Naiche, Desba replied. He is a pragmatic man. He sees that you have brought good to our people, that you could continue to bring good. He also sees that his son has chosen well, that you are not a weak woman who will bend at the first hardship. And perhaps most importantly, he sees an opportunity for something new, a bridge between two worlds that have known only war. He is wise enough to recognize that such bridges are rare and precious. The council lasted for 2 hours, voices sometimes raised in debate. Finally, Katsina emerged, his face breaking into a broad smile when he saw Eleanor waiting. It is decided, he said, pulling her to her feet. We will be married in 3 days' time, with both Apache traditions and any Christian elements you wish to include. My father has declared that you will be recognized fully as my wife, and as a member of our tribe, with all the rights and protections that entails. Eleanor threw her arms around him, tears of joy streaming down her face. I was so worried, she admitted. There was opposition, Katsina acknowledged, holding her close. Some of the older warriors believe that mixing with whites will weaken us, but my father reminded them that strength comes in many forms, and that a healer who saves lives is as valuable as a warrior who protects them. He also pointed out that you chose to stay when you could have left, which speaks to your character more loudly than any words could. The 3 days before the wedding passed in a blur of preparation. The Apache women, led by Desba, taught Eleanor the traditional ceremonies and prepared her wedding clothing, a beautiful dress of soft deerskin decorated with intricate beadwork in patterns that told stories of healing and courage. Eleanor wove elements of her own culture into the ceremony as well, speaking vows she had learned from her father, performing marriages in their Missouri community. On the day of the wedding, the entire village gathered in the central area where ceremonies were held. Chief Naiche presided over the Apache portions of the ritual, speaking words in his language that Daklugi translated for Eleanor. They spoke of the sacred bond between husband and wife, of the responsibilities each held to the other and to the community, of the hope that their union represented for a future where peace might someday be possible. When it came time for Eleanor to speak her vows, she looked into Katsina's eyes and spoke from her heart. I vow to stand beside you through whatever trials may come. I vow to honor your people and your traditions while remaining true to my own. I vow to use my healing knowledge to protect and nurture life, as you use your warrior skills to defend it. I vow to love you not despite our differences, but because of all that makes you who you are. From this day forward, your joys are my joys, your sorrows are my sorrows, and your path is my path. Katsina's vows were equally moving, promising to cherish her courage, protect her always, respect her wisdom, and build a life with her that honored both their heritages. When he kissed her to seal their union, the village erupted in celebration, the sound of drums and singing filling the canyon. As winter settled over the Arizona territory, Eleanor and Katsina built their life together. She continued her healing work, her reputation spreading to neighboring Apache bands who sometimes traveled great distances to seek her help. Katsina hunted and protected the village, but he also spent long hours with Eleanor, learning more of her healing arts so that he could assist her when needed. Their dwelling became a place where both cultures met and mingled. Eleanor taught Katsina to read and write English, and he taught her the deeper complexities of the Apache language. They shared stories from their different childhoods, finding common threads of love, loss, hope, and resilience that transcended cultural boundaries. One evening, 6 months after their wedding, as spring began to warm the canyon once more, Eleanor sat with Katsina watching the sunset paint the rock walls in brilliant oranges and purples. She placed his hand on her belly, where a new life grew, a child who would carry the blood of both peoples and perhaps represent a hope for a different future. Our child will grow up knowing both worlds, Eleanor said softly. They will know the healing traditions I learned from my father, and the wisdom Desba has taught me. They will know the warrior skills and survival knowledge you possess. They will be a bridge, as we are. Katsina kissed her temple, his arm tightening around her shoulders. They will know most importantly that they are deeply loved, and that love can exist even where the world says it should not. That is the greatest lesson we can teach them. Eleanor leaned into his embrace, feeling a peace she had never known before. Her journey to this canyon had begun with violence and fear, with loss and captivity, but it had transformed into something beautiful and unexpected. She had found not just survival, but purpose, not just acceptance, but love, not just a place to exist, but a home. Chief Naiche approached them as the last light faded from the sky. I have news, he said, settling beside them. Scouts report that the army is establishing a new post 2 days' ride from here. They are seeking to negotiate treaties with the Apache bands. They have asked specifically if the village with the white healer woman would send representatives to talk of peace. Eleanor and Katsina exchanged glances. This was the moment they had known would come eventually, when their two worlds would collide more directly, and choices would have to be made. What will you tell them? Eleanor asked the chief. Naiche looked at her thoughtfully. I will tell them that we will send representatives, and I think those representatives should be you and my son. You understand both peoples. You have lived in both worlds. If there is to be peace, it must be built by those who can see clearly from both sides. Will you go? Eleanor felt Katsina's hand find hers, their fingers intertwining. She thought of her father, who had believed in healing not just bodies but divisions between people. She thought of the child growing inside her, who deserved a world with less violence and more understanding. and she thought of the journey that had brought her here, from captive to healer, from outsider to beloved member of this community. "We will go," she said firmly. "We will speak for peace, for understanding, for the possibility that two peoples can find common ground. We cannot promise success, but we can promise to try with all our hearts." Katsina squeezed her hand. "Together," he said simply. "Together," Eleanor echoed, and in that word was a promise, a hope, and a future still being written. As the stars emerged above the canyon, the same stars her father had told her connected all people, Eleanor felt the circle of her life closing and opening simultaneously. She had lost her old life, but gained one richer and more meaningful than she could have imagined. She had been saved from death, and in turn had saved the life of the man she loved. She had been a prisoner who became free not by escaping, but by choosing to stay. And now, with Katsina beside her and their child on the way, she would work to build bridges between worlds, to heal not just bodies, but the wounds of hatred and fear. It would not be easy. There would be setbacks and sorrows along the way, but she had learned that true courage was not the absence of fear, but the choice to move forward despite it. The white prisoner who had risked everything to save an Apache chief's son had found her home, her purpose, and her love. And in doing so, she had begun to write a new story, one of hope and healing, of love transcending boundaries, and of two people brave enough to believe that a better future was possible. As Eleanor and Katsina sat together under the stars, holding each other close and dreaming of the days to come, they knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them as they had faced everything else, together, with courage, with love, and with an unshakable faith in the power of two hearts joined as one.